10:01. Let's get rocking and rolling here. Cleaned up for the Zoom. I did, Walter. Absolutely. All righty. I appreciate everyone joining, whether you're live here in the chat bar or catching this later on our little archive website. If you're live, I want this to be like Ryder Cup meets the Live tournament. I want live music pumping in your background. I want the chat bar active. I want to be able to interact with you guys as much as we possibly can via this Zoom and the technology. So we'll get rocking and rolling. First off, happy Masters Week. It's my favorite time of the year. You got spring rolling in, beautiful summer weather kind of coming and going, and probably the greatest golf tournament is here. And it's by all means my favorite time of year. I assume productivity is going to be a little questionable over the industry since all of us are, or most of us are golfers and enjoy the Masters tournament. And I know for me, at least one screen throughout this whole week is going to be the Masters while I'm trying to. My dad's in town going to Del Mar Car Show, but we're also going to be watching the Masters and trying to do some work here. So try and keep that productivity high there, everyone. I'll keep things pretty straightforward and practical today. Ideally, hopefully, give you something that you can actually use in a client conversation and not just theory and all unicorns and rainbows. But at the end of the day, that's what actually moves the needle, right? What can you say and do in a meeting that helps drive the value of the cost that you're presenting? And so this is part of our expeditionary series, as you see it on the screen. It's hosted by our consulting team with Tristan in the background helping us a ton. Thank you, Tristan, for everything that you do for us, buddy. They'll be held approximately every 2 weeks. I know the next one's got a couple, or we're jumping off in May with prospecting 401k plans for rookie advisors. And I would say that one's not really for rookies. It's for everyone. Even if you're a well-versed retirement plan advisor that maybe is just in that service model right now that wants to get back into prospecting, it's going to be a good conversation that Chad's going to be leading there. And then previous expeditions that we've had, pick a fight with your prospect and challenge them. This is probably one of the pieces that you could challenge on as far as cost and value that you bring. Chad's new rules in the 401k and how that's going to affect the prospecting on the next series here. Mark's meeting prep, how to properly prep for a meeting and roll through what you're going to say and how you're going to do it. And then Justin's highlights of record keepers. We always have the Retireaholics. They've been going 11 years now, those guys. First and third Thursday every month at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. So if you miss anything, everything's going to be recorded, available on demand at plandesign.com/401k EXP or dash EXP. And let's get into this. All right. Cliche phrase of the day. Gotta love it. But I have to say it because every influencer out there likes to say it. It's not about the cost, it's about the value that you drive or the value that you bring, which is true, but it's also a little overused. Here's the reality. Cost is what you pay, value is what you get. But neither of those matter if the client doesn't understand what the value that they're getting, right? You can explain value all you want, but if they don't understand it, and that's and in reality, if they don't understand it, it's going to feel expensive. It's going to just be a number of like, oh, well, that seems expensive. They don't truly understand that value, and in their minds, once they don't understand that value, if they can't get to that value proposition, it's going to be hard to recover that conversation. And so you've probably been in that meeting where a plan is competitive. It's competitive. The costs are there, the value's there, but the client keeps coming back to, I just don't know. It feels high. It looks high. How do you drive back that value? And so today is really not about value. It's about clarity. How do you bring that clarity in the value that you bring to a conversation and to a plan? Okay. Cost is not just one number, right? Value is not just one number. What the step one is, what are we actually talking about? When a client says this plan's expensive or that seems high, they're usually combining all of the people into one direct number, right? One flat dollar amount. That's expensive. But there's multiple layers, just like an onion. There's bundled, there's unbundled. And within unbundled and bundled, there's administration costs, there's record keeping costs, there's advisor costs, there's investment costs. And so, what is the admin? What value does the compliance and the 5500 filing and the plan design and 316 services, like what value does that bring to that client? And do they need all of those? Do they need 316? Right? Like, what is it that they are looking for as a client? And they don't know what they don't know. So, as you're explaining it and going into it, really driving the value of the team approach is the way that we do things here at PDC and the way that we've seen success over the 51 years that we've had. And so when you look into record keeping, what kind of platform is there? Participant accounts, participant education. Mark loves this, the wellness benefits that the record keeper can provide. You get in the advisor, what type of strategy do they have? What type of support? What type of guidance? What type of employee education are they going to provide? What is the annual fiduciary review that they do? How is that all set up? So all of these factors are driven into that value. And the record keeper and advisor has a dual part in the investments, right? The record keeper provides the investments in the lineup, and the advisor hopefully helps try and adjust that lineup to best fit that plan and best fit those participants. And whether it's proprietary or non-proprietary, if you think about it this way, if you rolled your mortgage insurance, your phone bill, your utilities all into $1 amount, I would be safe to say that that would feel expensive. You see that $1 amount without the explanation of what each piece does. That's a high number. But those are must haves that we look at those and we generally see the value of each, understanding at the cost we are willing to accept because our mortgage provides a roof over our family's head. Our phone allows us to communicate with our clients and do business and create that productivity in our life. Our utilities keep the power on, right? So when you drive that value to those specific examples, that all in one number doesn't seem like a high number because they're each the derivative is driving the value in your life. And so the same idea is in the 401k. And if you don't separate these and you can't explain them clearly, it's where plan sponsors see one cost and say, hey, it's expensive, instead of looking at it as a holistic approach and that team approach. What is the team that I'm getting here? What is the value that I'm getting here? Now, this is where people get stuck, right? How do I drive that value? Much of the conversation stems around how costs are presented. Some costs are directly built, some are asset based, some are embedded within the investments. If they're directly billed, that's easy enough. That's 99% of the industry out there. I did a service for you. Here's a bill or invoice for my services. Okay, easy to understand. Well, what's an asset base? Well, that generally can be understood if you explain it properly of, hey, you have $100,000 and I'm going to take 1% on an annual basis, right? And we're going to hopefully grow that. But generally speaking, let's keep it high level here. 100,000 equals $1,000 a year. You're getting paid through those assets that you're helping grow as an advisor. So that's a generally understood kind of topic. But when you start embedding those, when you start saying, hey, your investments are going to pay Devin, they're going to pay a record keeper, they're going to pay me, the advisor, and you have one investment cost that's paying all these parties, that's where plan sponsors get a little fuzzy and say, oh, okay. And if it's not transparent, if you're not saying, hey, 50 basis points is me, 25 basis points is a record keeper, and you're not able to really lay those out for a plan sponsor, they're just going to see a percentage and maybe balk at it, maybe not, maybe just ignore it, right? And so when sometimes we show a monthly number and we move on, and it seems easy, straightforward, but does that monthly number, does it include asset? Does it include wrap fees? What is that monthly number? So just showing a monthly fee and moving on is generally easier, but we want to make sure that they understand what that monthly fee uh, feels and looks like. So I come across, say, 150 bucks a month, right? Oh, 150. We're in the subscription based model nowadays. 150 bucks a month. That's not a big deal for a benefit. Great, fantastic. But when you start breaking it out and say that's $1,800 a year, I've had situations where clients will be all for $150 a month. But when you annualize it, it completely changes the subject of like, oh, $1,800 is maybe a little high. And then $1,800 on top of a 1.5 asset base fee. Well, what does that even mean? How does that work? What does it look like? The questions that you get. And so every provider structures things a little differently, including us here at PDC. We try to be as transparent as possible in what we do, but it just can add to confusion when you're bringing all parties together. And so what happens, client and advisors end up comparing things that aren't apples to apples. It's more apples to oranges, or something's not brought up that actually is making the cost higher somewhere, right? And then on top of all of that, you've got things behind the scenes that impact cost without even being obvious, right? You have proprietary investment lineups. You have revenue sharing, right? TPAs get revenue sharing. They may not get revenue sharing. MVAs, market value adjustments, those can affect transition costs. And then you have transition costs. If you're moving from one record keeper to another, there might be a, hey, you're leaving us. This is a $2,000 charge to leave, right? So all of those things, it wraps up to it's what value am I bringing to ultimately show that cost and make sure that they understand the transparency and through cost. And so those MVAs, those revenue sharings, those transition costs typically are when you're down the road in implementation and someone kind of stops and mostly plan sponsors are like, wait, what is this? What's this $1,500 charge? I don't understand it, right? And so I'm not going to go super deep into what those are. Would love to have a conversation if you have questions on that. Any one of our team can help you there, but essentially, you don't need to master them. You just need to know they exist, and how do you transparently communicate that to your plan sponsor? And so this is one of the ways that over the 51 years PDC has been in business, we've kind of been able to show this, right? And so we believe this is where you can win and lose a plan through transparency, right? If you're not transparent, it may be easy and quick, but what did that cost them, right? What does that opportunity cost there? So we're going to take basic example. We're going to take $1 million plan. No participants. We'll just look at assets. $1 million plan. There's two examples here. Plan A, anything with a hard dollar sign is going to be hard billed to the client. Anything with a percentage sign is going to come out of assets. So if you look at column A, you got a $3,400 hard base fee annually with a 1.03 out of your investments. Comes out to be $13,700. You look at column B, no build, all percentage base. You got a 1.37% asset base fee. Comes out to be $13,700. Now the conversation can turn into what does that look like at 2 million? What does that look like at 5 million? But essentially, what you can play and what you can do within how the fees are structured, this is true apples to apples. Breaking out the TPA, breaking out the advisor, breaking out the record keeper, breaking out the investments, breaking those out. And then in the very bottom, you see provider requirements. That's where you can put notes and say, hey, this one has an MVA, or this one has a $1,500 termination fee, or this one has X, Y, and Z. And you can leave those notes in the bottom of like, there might be some extra costs here, but this from apples to apples on a comparison, how your plan's going to be running through the year is on par with each other. And now this might be a little different, right? What happens if it goes 1.50%, but there's no MVA or there's no transition cost? But option B has an MVA and has transition cost, right? So what the client actually sees when they're looking at this is, in general, Plan A's expensive. It costs me money out of my pocket from my business. But how do you turn that? Can you say, well, that $3,400 is actually a write off, right? It's an operational expense to run this benefit. So you get to, that is a write off portion of the fees that you're paying. Where in column B, there is no write offs. It's completely coming out of participants. And in column B, if you have 50 people and you're taking that 1.37 and dividing it over the 50 people, that's totally fine and doable. But if you have five and majority of the assets are the business owner and their spouse, well, 1.37, would you rather take that as a billed expense that you can ultimately use as a tax write-off, or would you rather that come off the top of your investments, right? What is the value that the plan sponsor needs to hear to understand the cost that's going to come with this? And then what's the value that those three or four people are bringing to the party? And so most clients lean towards plan B, right? Hey, that seems cheaper, but in reality, they're exactly the same. So instead of trying to explain every little detail, instead of trying to get into the nitty gritty and just keep it high level, if you make it comparable, if you break everything into the same language so that your clients can actually follow, separate the categories, convert everything to an annual cost. If you have one monthly cost and then one all asset and one all, hard built, convert everything to an annual cost number. What is that number that's going to be coming out every year? Because if you don't, you're not comparing apples to apples. At that point, you're trying to put together all of these pieces that will come off as disconjointed, right? And so if you structure it properly, you run the plan properly, you invest the money in, and you just advise continuously throughout the years of, hey, this is where we were at when you're at $1 million. This is where we're at worth 2 million. And you keep everything apples to apples. It's going to help the plan sponsor understand that transparency and what the value that you're bringing. And so I always want to leave at this point, or leave this slide at this point, no matter how it's built, no matter how a plan is structured and the hidden fees, if you will, hidden in the sense that you can show hidden fees through transparency, but no matter how it's built, it always comes back to those four items. What's your compliance cost? What's your record keeping cost? What's your advisor cost? What's your investment cost? That's the general rule of thumb, is these four have to be labeled apples to apples and try and draw true comparisons. And so key takeaways from today. If you take one thing from all of this, the same cost does not equal the same presentation, right? When you're comparing just an all billed expense versus all asset based expense, that's two different presentations, but the general consensus is the same. And so I actually had a client to go to this fact that I presented on a build, right? Hey, this is going to be billed to you. And the client came back and was actually hit me back with, hey, this record keeper, whoever said that my plan's free for X amount of months. And I wanted to drill down. I never got an answer, but I wanted to drill down, and I was like, hold on, time out. What do you mean by free? What did they say? Did they go to Chad's points of like tax credits? Did they say, hey, you're going to get $5,000. It's going to operate at $5,000 cost, and you're going to get a $5,000 tax credit, and your plan's going to be free? Well, that's only free for 3 years. Did they explain after 3 years? Well, they don't have to. It's just a point of sale, right? You say free, it's going to make someone jump. So I bring that point of preparation to Mark's stage. The preparation of what you're going to present and how you're going to present it is going to be key for you. Because if you find out that one record keeper is offering a free plan, what does that free actually mean? And so not all costs are visible, but the structure creates the clarity, right? We talked about those hidden fees. As long as it's structured properly and you're pointing it out, then the clarity through transparency, it will win. And it's not complex. It's not more details. It's just being clear, apples to apples comparison. So I'll end it with this. I hope you guys have a great Masters week. I hope this hit home and help clarify some things and how we do things here at PDC and want to get that education out there. There's nothing that we're doing that's crazy different than anyone else. I'm sure everyone has some type of semblance of this, but let's have that conversation. Let's see what we can do. How can we mold things? What do you want to bring into the conversation, as the record keeper, as the advisor, yeah, as the consultant? And so I'll leave it. I'll leave it with this. The next webinar is going to be Chad Johansson with that 401k rookie prospecting. It's going to be May 5th at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday. Next Retireaholics is next week. And then all of our previous webinars are going to be on that plandesign.com/401k exp archive. You can find those there. And so the advisor or consultant who explains these clearly, even if they're not the cheapest, is the one who's going to build that trust, is the one who's going to win that conversation. I appreciate all of you for taking the time, and I hope you guys all enjoy one hell of a Masters week. And go Justin Rose. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.